Chapter 1. MC's POV. As I finished reading the latest chapter of the manga The Eminence in Shadow, all I could think about was how can a character be so weird, stupid, and likable at the same time. Don't get me wrong, I really like the character and think he's cool, but it's just frustrating watching him. As an assassin myself, a being who works in the dark, I really like the part of the whole secret second life thing he has going on. But not the whole mob thing. You can still live a high-profile life and live a second life about being in the shadows without anyone finding out. Trust me, I would know that apart from just being a famous assassin, I'm also a high-profile movie star, and no one knows of my assassination jobs. To everyone else, Ryan Martin and Azrael the Angel of Death Incarnate are two whole different beings. When I was little, I was heavily neglected and would just spend my time in the streets just wandering around. Having nothing better to do, I just started to pick pockets and enjoyed the feeling of it until I was eventually caught. I was 14 years old when he got me, and during that time I had to mature early to take care of myself and not starve. One thing I resent my parents for was not letting me enjoy what being a kid felt like. The being who caught me just so happened to be the most legendary assassin of his time, which by the way is a really big fucking coincidence. It was like a 1 in a billion chance of that happening. When he saw me almost get away with his wallet, he just raised a brow and said that I had a talent for being undetected. I just told him that when you're neglected, you tend to blend in and not cause trouble, cause just as you're quickly neglected, it can quickly turn into abuse. The old man just looked at me longer than normal and said, "You know, I was just looking to retire and train my next successor, and look at what God put in my way." Even though I didn't know it at the time, he came to be a very important figure in my life. He was someone I respected from the bottom of my heart. Although I did always found it funny that a being that deals with death for a living would be so religious as to mention God when we first met. The old man asked me if I wanted to be his successor, and me being the neglected kid that I was, fucking agreed like an idiot. I was pretty naive back then. Luckily he was genuine. Now that I think about it, I was fucking kidnapped, wasn't I? While thinking about the old man, all I remember was the lessons he taught me. Some of the lessons weren't even about being an assassin, they were just about life. For the time I asked him why he was so religious. His answer was honestly quite shocking. He told me it was so he has something to believe in, that even if it was tiny, he wanted to have faith in something and keep him grounded from losing himself in the art of killing and becoming a monster that only knows how to kill. I came to respect that, so I chose to believe in something too. Myself, I believed that I had the will to not go down such a road. And thanks to that, I was trained to be the perfect assassin until the old man unfortunately passed away. As a side effect, my acting became perfect thanks to his training. Although thanks to my neglectful self still wanting validation, I went into the movie industry and got validation from the masses and fans. That wasn't the only thing that bastard of an old man taught me. I still remember when he threw me into a brothel when I just turned 18 to get immunity towards beauty and sex and not get distracted during missions. So as I was saying before, you don't need to be a background character to be the Eminence in the shadows, you just need power and a whole lot of skills. Now I know what you might be saying, what's a cool movie star assassin like you doing just reading manga, anime and novels of the sorts? Isn't that only for people who want an escape from reality and have a miserable life? And to that, I tell you to fuck off. Anime is for everyone. I still remembered when I encountered anime, it was for an infiltration mission, and seducing a target. The only way to get closer to the target was to get into the hobbies they enjoyed, which just so happened to be anime. I had to spend hour upon hour to get closer to this target, but along the way the more I watched the more I enjoyed it. Until I became hooked and into the downward spiral I went. Now, as I was saying about Cid, it's fucking weird how everything just lines up for him. It's like Lady Luck gets on her knees just for him, with how much things just works out for him with those million-dollar coincidences. Now that I think about it, maybe Lady Luck is a whore. Cause I had my fair share of lucky situations like meeting the old man, which I still find seriously suspicious, and then him just retiring and looking for a disciple at the right time. Now the reason for why I'm monologuing and talking about the latest chapter of the manga and Cid. While waiting on a rooftop with a sniper in front of me waiting for my target, I decided to spend most of my time reading mangas I saw just updated. The last one I finished reading was the current chapter of Eminence in Shadow, and as I finished reading, I got a notification on my burner phone where I take assassination missions. And the notification just so happened to be an email. And the main title for it was Reincarnation Interview. Looking at the title, all I could do was snicker slightly. How did they even get a hold of my burner phone? And an interview about being isekai to another world like those lame fanfics, how funny. I thought while reading it, seeing that it would be a while before my target arrives, I decided to entertain the idea, seeing this as just an obvious joke. As I clicked on the link it presented, it took me to a website with a question in the middle of it, with the next button next to the answer section. The first question was the most stereotypical: if you were given the chance to be reincarnated into another world, where would you want to be reincarnated? Having just finished reading Eminence and Shadow, I chose it. I mean, come on, when you finish reading something, the first thing that pops to mind is what would I do in this situation, so just having finished reading the latest chapter, my most obvious choice would be it. The next question was which character from Eminence and Shadow would you want to be reincarnated as and during what period and condition? It wasn't that hard of a question, which caused me to monologue about the character in my life. Now back to the question, my choice would be obvious once again. It would be Cid Kagenou. I mean, I could hit the random button, but there's a chance I would get reincarnated as a girl instead, so no thank you. Now about the period, I chose when he was Minoru, his previous incarnation, as it would let me hone all my skills to the utmost limit and learn new ones. As for the condition, it would be to be able to know exactly when I'm supposed to die and be able to reincarnate once again as Cid. The next question was if you could have the full skill set of any character, who would it be? While looking at this question, the answer was obvious: Sung Jin Woo. Who wouldn't want to be the Shadow Monarch? While looking further down, I noticed an add-on section. It says I could choose something the character has, but it has to be something from the same character. So while thinking about it, I decided on the shadows he had when he got killed. He had about 1,000 of them, which in my opinion is a perfect starter amount. Well, that was short, I mumble, seeing that I already answered everything, and with that, I hit send and tossed my phone to the side as I went back into the scope of my sniper. And as my target arrives, I fire my shot, killing him, completing another successful mission. As I stood up while putting my sniper onto my shoulders, I suddenly got dizzy. Why, I muttered as I started to fall face first, and as my face touched the floor of the roof, to the side I saw my phone with the screen on, and in the middle was a check mark with the letters spelling out "approved" right under it. No way, were my last thoughts as I lost consciousness. Chapter 2. Omni, POV. No way. Those were Ryan's last thoughts before he passed away, with his phone in his hands, looking at the check mark and his phone spelling out "approved." As he passed away, his soul slowly drifted into space and into the light, where he woke up crying as a baby in the arms of a Japanese woman, and as Ryan struggled to control his new baby body, he heard somebody speak in Japanese. "Congratulations, mate, it's a healthy baby boy. Do you have a name ready for your new son?" The doctor asks Ryan's new mother. The mother, looking exhausted from the labor, just smiles while holding her baby and says, "Yes, me and my husband have decided to name him Minoru Kagenou," while looking at her husband with a loving gaze. Now hearing that name, Ryan, whose name is now Minoru, starts laughing like crazy inside his head, as thanks to his previous jobs, understands perfect Japanese. But what came out was cute baby giggles. The Japanese couple, hearing their baby start giggling when his name was mentioned, just smiled back at him, unaware of these little gremlins' thoughts. "Oh, you see that, honey, it seems he likes the name," the husband says while looking at his baby boy. "Whoa, a baby, that's what I'm talking about. Looks like Lady Luck is on her knees for me tonight." That survey was real. Phew, I just had to get that out of the way. No matter how mature someone is or how trained I was, there was no way I wasn't going to celebrate being reincarnated, especially as future Cid, and knowing my future, it's definitely worth the celebration. It's even harder to go back to my training in this new body. It's hard to control my emotions properly. Oh well, I guess I'll use what I got, and that's this new life as Minoru. I'll use it to study things I wasn't able to in my past life and make myself even smarter and more knowledgeable before dying once more and reincarnating into Cid. And with these thoughts, he soon fell asleep in his mother's arms with a tiny smile on his face. MC, POV. Before I knew it, 4 years had passed and I discovered some things about myself. My memories have become better, and I somehow feel spiritually better. It's hard to explain it. My cognitive abilities have all been upgraded, and it's either one of two things. 1. It's probably thanks to my age, since kids from an early age pick up things quicker and can grasp things better. I'm at the stage where things just seemed easy. Or 2, since I reincarnated, my soul probably absorbed the soul of who would have been the original Minoru and strengthened itself, making it stronger. If it's the second one, I'm not going to be like those wimpy reincarnated guys from those novels that get depressed about taking the body of someone. First of all, I'm an assassin, and second of all his soul at the moment of my reincarnation was just a blank slate. A good analogy for it would be like ripping a piece of paper. If the paper had content on it, I would feel bad since it was the hard work of a person, but since the paper was empty, nobody is gonna cry over it. If that makes sense. Since my cognitive is at an all-time high, I decided to take advantage of it, in case it is indeed the former reason. Now about the skill sets of Sung Jin Woo, it would seem like I still don't have access to them, which means I would have to die one more time in order to activate them. Probably for saying I wanted to be reincarnated as Cid, not Minoru. Oh well, I guess in the meantime I will just have to use this time to develop other skills I didn't get to explore previously. I started to show my interest in music, which my parents were elated about. Since in the original, Minoru's parent made him learn about music, they probably wanted a musically inclined child, which worked in my favor. Thanks to that, they hired a tutor for me, and when I showed my talent and quick learning to him, he wanted to teach me. So thanks to the tutor I started learning many types of instruments. So thanks to that as well, I went to many music competitions and won them all. My music was just as good as the original composer, if not better, when I was 10, which quickly brought me fame. Which I was already used to thanks to my previous life. Thanks to that fame, many rich businessmen who held great extravagant parties and dinners would send a formal invitation so I could play at their parties. Even though it was an invitation, I would still get paid millions of yens thanks to it. Seeing that I was already good with music, I decided to focus on other things since I did not need for it anymore. One of the main things I focused on was martial arts. But I also focus on other things that would make me richer in another world, like cooking and different types of culinary cuisines. Which would be helpful if I wanted to open a big business empire in the future. The things I mostly focused on were different types of alcohol, chocolate like how the original Cid did, sauces, spices, and the likes. I also dabble in fashion. As the leader of a future organization, I need to appear presentable after all. After all, the quote goes, the clothes make the man. I know what you may be thinking, but Minoru, how are you able to learn so many things so fast in just that short amount of time? Surely there has to be a limit, right? It just seems illogical. The answer to that, my not so existing friends, is that 6 fucking years is a lot of time. Some of the things I talked about, all I had to do was read and remember them, which thanks to my spiritual awakening was super easy, so no, it's not illogical. And so when I turned 10, I abandoned the music industry and focused mostly on martial arts for 5 more years. During those 5 years, I studied many different types of martial arts: Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Tai Chi, kickboxing, karate, kung fu, aikido, judo, kendo, krav maga, wing chun, jeet kune do, hapkido, capoeira, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and ninjutsu, and many types of different weapons. And let me tell you, it hurts. I may be mentally strong, but I had to readjust my pain tolerance once again. Thinking about it, I'm going to have to redo this once again when I die. Fuck. Now then, thanks to reaching the age of 15, I realized that it was my soul that was strengthened. It wasn't thanks to my age that I was smart, which is a blessing in itself. Anyway, thanks to all the martial arts I learned, I started to create my own by taking the best part of each one of them and interconnecting them where they fit best. Especially swordsmanship, which was one of the things I really focused on. Since I knew I was going to a world of sword and magic, I mostly practiced my swordsmanship, making it extremely deadly, elegant, and sharp. Can't forget about stylish as well. Which would leave people in awe due to my swordsmanship. I guess being in the movie industry in my previous life has left me with the desire to show off and put on performances. And to learn all of these martial arts, I would travel the world with all the money I earned from the music competitions and party invites and meet different practitioners. I would then later fight them, and during these fights, I would start copying them, which would shock them and start to teach me willingly. When I turned 15, my parents had to move to America for a job relocation. I didn't care much as I wasn't that close with them. It's especially hard to do that when you're an adult mentally when you started. And since I am going to die, I don't see the point of getting along with them. It's a waste of time and would just make them grieve even harder when it happens, which would just seem cruel. I'm an assassin, not a monster. I then went to Japan to spend the rest of my years there. I decided to go for the school the original Minoru went to, Sakurazaka Senior High. The reason is simple, it's for Akane Nishino, and no, it's not for lustful reasons. One of the many things the old man taught me was how to control my lust. One of the many reasons why so many assassins failed their mission or were killed during it was because they couldn't control themselves and gave in to lust. Though I wouldn't mind building a harem in a near future. This desire mostly comes from not having any meaningful relationships except from the old man. So no, the reason wasn't lust, it's cause she can be of use, especially when this world goes to shit. So I went and enrolled in school where people started to recognize me, but left me alone due to my presence, which I controlled to give out a don't want to be bothered kind of feeling, which people found weird. During my high school time, I mostly kept to myself, once again not finding any reason to interact with anyone, and spent the rest of my time studying things about business and what could be of any help. And that went on until I finally turned 17, and my next seat neighbor then turned to be a Kane Nishino. That was when I realized that I had just entered the final months of my life. Chapter 3. Omni, POV. While Minoru was just looking down in his book at the moment, reading and studying about the business, his classmate next to him, a Kane Nishino, called out to him. "Hey Kagenou-kun, you dropped your printout," she said while handing him back the piece of paper he purposely dropped. "Oh, that I did, thanks Nishimura-san," Minoru said, getting her name wrong on purpose. At this point, it was like he was reading a script by the way things were going. And good thing he was an actor in his past life, with his acting and the script already presented in his memories. It was go time. "Nai Nishimura?" Akane said with a smiling ticked expression. She then corrected him. "Kagenou-kun, my name is Nishino. We've been classmates for 3 months now, would you remember my name already?" Minoru in a monotone voice just says, "Of course, I remember you. Not only are you a popular actress, but you're also the daughter of a billionaire. I would never forget someone I played to before." Hearing this, she got confused. "Huh? What do you mean?" "When I was little and still doing music, a lot of rich businessmen would pay a lot of money for me to play at their parties, especially birthday parties. Your father just so happens to be one of them. It was good money for your birthday party when you were little. I have a really good memory, but I just can't be bothered to remember everyone I come across. Anyways, sorry for getting your name wrong, Nishitani-san," Minoru said once again in a monotone voice. "It's Nishino." She expressed irritation. "And how can I forget, it was one of the best birthday party I ever had, and it was thanks to your music," she thought while sighing. "Well, still, thanks for picking up my printout, Nishimura-san." Minoru continued. "Now it's back to the first one," she yelled. She then covered her mouth with her hands and with a nervous expression said, That was a mistake, forget about the outburst just now, Kagenou-kun." Thanks to her outburst, she decided to stay quiet for the rest of the day. Due to being an actress, she mostly tries to keep a good image of herself out to the public. And so the day passes and school is over for the day. Everyone is going home, except Akane Nishino. She just keeps looking at her phone with a nervous expression. Just why won't he pick up the phone? It's getting dark, I'll have to leave by myself, which is something I would like to avoid, Akane thought to herself, while still trying to get in contact with her driver. Seeing the time, Akane knew that she had to walk alone in the dark by herself, something she didn't want to do due to being kidnapped before and due to her previous controversy she had, which left her with a bit of a mental scar. Standing up from her desk, she just sighed before getting her bag as well. She then started walking out of the school and into the direction of her house. And as she started going home, she kept getting this feeling that someone was watching her, but she couldn't pinpoint it, and with that, she kept walking home while looking over her shoulder every few minutes. Until she heard a footstep behind her, causing her to gasp in surprise. Before turning around and seeing no one there, she breathed a sigh of relief and turned around to continue on her route home, but unfortunately bumped into a tall man. She staggers back slightly and looks up at the man. The man in question just gave off an intimidating presence before saying, "Akane Nishino, I presume." Akane quickly just turned around and started running, but she didn't make it far as a white van soon appeared blocking her way. As the van opens, a blonde-haired guy comes out of it and starts grabbing her. "Stop, let me go please," she then started to beg, but was cut short by the blonde-haired guy covering her mouth with a chloroformed rag. "Come on, stop struggling," the blonde guy says while still covering her mouth. But Akane didn't listen and continues to struggle. Just when she is about to lose consciousness, out of the corner of her eyes, she saw Minoru standing there with a nonchalant expression, and with that she finally lost consciousness. POV change. Minoru's POV. Seeing Akane being taken away on the van, I just disappeared from the streets and parker my way into the top of the houses in the area. Watching the van from a distance, I just started to follow it, jumping from building to building until they stopped in front of a warehouse. Seeing that they arrived at their destination, I decided to change out of my uniform and into clothes I always carry in my bag. Image of his outfit. Once down, I made my way to the top of the warehouse and watched what was happening below with a cold expression on my face, although one couldn't tell due to the mask I was wearing. The only thing that appeared were my eyes. As Akane woke up, she started looking around and saw that she was tied up. She then started to try and wiggle herself out of her bindings. The blonde guy who was sitting down just started laughing while watching her. "Haha, you know you shouldn't do that," he said before standing up and continues speaking. "The daughter of the head of the Nishino Zaibatsu, wandering the streets at night. You might get caught by some unsavory characters." The other guy with him, who was a retired military soldier I believe, interrupted, "Just stay there and don't try anything. We sent a ransom note. As soon as we get the money, you're free to go." The blonde guy then added, "It looks like your father made a lot of enemies." The military soldier just told him to shut it and stop talking like a gangster. Which led to the two bickering for a while. They stopped bickering, and the blonde hair guy turns to Akane and says, "Oh man, and today was supposed to be a good day for me, and now it's ruined. Why don't you make me feel better?" He then slowly reaches over to Akane and says, "Why don't we start with a little bit of fan service? Let's start with that little mouth of yours." He finishes off by grabbing her face. Akane, feeling his hands on her face, squeals slightly in disgust and turns her head away, shaking his hand away. The blonde guy, slightly more angry, just says, "Don't you dare fight me," slaps as he slaps her. I'll wait just a little bit for him to get a little bit more handsy to make Akane fall just slightly into despair, so that when I save her, her gratitude would be even larger, I thought while watching the scene. And as I watched him reach his hands to grab her, I thought to myself, yeah, no, what the hell am I doing? If I want someone to be loyal to me, I don't need such cheap tricks that may leave her with even greater mental scars in the future. And with that, I kicked the window frame of the skylight, and as I did, the whole thing shattered and started to fall to the ground with me on top of it. As it fell and landed, dust started flying everywhere. Everyone else in the warehouse stops what they're doing. The blonde guy, who was about to touch Akane, stopped his hands halfway and sighed before standing up and turning around to face me. When the dust settled down, he said, "Who the hell are you, bastard? Can't you see I was just about to have some fun? TSK. Name's Azrael, that's all you need to know." And with that, I bend down and pick up a shard of glass. While I was bending over, the blonde guy came running towards me while winding up his fist trying to punch me. I then threw the glass shard, hitting him on his knees, and as the shard went inside his knees, he fell to the ground screaming in pain in front of me. "Argue, son of a bitch." I then hear rapid footsteps behind me. I tilt my head to the side while still looking at the guy on the ground screaming. An arm holding a knife swings past me, missing me by an inch. When the arm with the knife was over my shoulder, I grabbed it with both hands and threw the guy with an over-shoulder throw onto the guy on the ground. When they made contact, the blonde guy on the ground was knocked unconscious due to the impact, while the military guy was just grunting on top of him, while I still had a hold of his arm with the knife. I started to then twist his arm, making him drop the knife and scream out in even more pain. "Arg, please stop, you're going to break my arm," the military guy pleaded. I just looked straight into his eyes. Crack. Arg, he let out a blood-curdling scream while still on top of his partner. I let go of his arm, which was now in a weird shape, and sent a kick right to his chin, shutting him up and knocking him unconscious, which sent him flying off his partner and skidding along the floor. I then bent down to pick up the knife. While I was bending over, I reached over and grabbed the glass shard that was still lodged into the guy's knee and pulled it out without any mercy. Which caused the blonde guy to wake up once again and start screaming. "Arg, please, I'm begging you to make it stop." Already used to the sound of people begging for mercy, I didn't even bat an eye as I stood up and threw the glass shard once again, but this time I threw it right in his pelvis and into his reproductive organ. The guy couldn't even scream as he passed out again due to the overbearing pain, while Akane, who was watching everything, flinched and closed her eyes, turning her head away to not look at such a gory scene. As I started walking towards her, she probably heard my footsteps as she slowly turned her head to my direction once again and slowly opened her eyes. When she saw me slowly walking toward her with a knife in hand and blood flowing behind me, it most likely scared her as she shut her eyes once again and tried to shuffle backward in a fast manner. When she opened her eyes again, she saw that I wasn't there. I made my presence known behind her, and as I was untying her with the knife, I said, "You gotta stop getting kidnapped. This is like the second time I stopped it. I'm not always going to be there." Hearing me, she then goes white-eye and said, "You're the guy that helped me with the stalker." Omni, POV. Akane, hearing Minoru, was shocked and said, "You're the guy that helped me with the stalker. He sounds the same as before, it's him." But his voice sounds familiar. As Akane continued to look at Minoru more deeply, she couldn't make out any of his features, except his eyes. They're familiar, like I saw them recently, she thought while keeping her gaze on his eyes. Once he was done untying her, he threw the knife at the military guy's lower region, which caused him to scream out in pain and start losing blood rapidly. When Akane looked over to the screaming guy, Minoru slowly made his presence as little as possible and escaped from her view, leaving her alone in the warehouse, where she proceeded to call her father to help her pick her up. Chapter 4. Minoru's POV. The next day came, and thanks to the previous event, Akane started trying to speak to me more throughout the day. Once the day finished, I decided to check out the forest that was near the school at night, where there was barely anybody. I just got to find a boulder that's not far from the streets where cars pass around, and that should be the place the original Minoru was banging his head trying to see real magic. Which would also be close to the place where he got run over. I found the place after an hour of looking for it, and what I found was quite shocking. Thanks to my upgraded soul, my spatial awareness has been heightened, which means my ability to detect things has also increased. So when I arrived, it was quite a shock to feel something just floating around the area quite casually. And when I reached out my hands to touch what I was feeling, nothing impressive happened. Although I couldn't see anything, I just knew something was there, and I had a feeling it's magic. And so I sat down and got into a meditative position and tried to move the mana in the air around. They would shake for a little bit, but then they would continue to do what they were doing. Seeing them shaking, I knew that I was getting somewhere, so I kept trying and trying until morning came. When morning came, I was still sitting around trying to move the mana particles, but as time went on I started getting much more successful. It would seem like my strong soul was a blessing in disguise due to how many times it has helped me, like right now, in order to move mana. Intent is what it uses, which is hard to express outward. I have a theory based on what I know about how the magic in that world works. It's all about intent and how well you manipulate it. It's easier to control mana when it's inside of you or with something you're in contact with. That's why it would dissipate when it's outside or farther away from the user. Since you can't express your intent outward or when it's far away, it's your intent that keeps it together. That's why I say that having a strong soul is a blessing. With a strong soul, I'm able to extend that intent outwards with a bit of ease, making it easy to manipulate mana. And the more you practice, the easier it is to express your intent, which is why Epsilon was such a master at mana control. Due to her constantly expressing her intent to mana, it became easier and easier until she could do without much effort. Due to this revelation, I continued to practice every day for a week. And then it happened. I got a buzzing type of feeling going inside my head, indicating to me that it was time and I should win. Words weren't even expressed, all of it was just a feeling. The mana around the area all started to flow in one specific direction in an extremely fast motion. Seeing, I knew exactly what it meant. My time has come. So I started running after it, and once I made it to the street, a truck was just driving along. Seeing the truck, all I thought was about the memes in my previous life. Truck kun, take me. AN. That sounded so sexual, lol. Omni, POV. As the truck was driving along the road, a boy soon appeared running in front of it. The driver, seeing the boy, then honked the horn to warn him. Honk honk. The truck driver then tried to avoid him, but it was too late, and the boy, Minoru, got sent flying, which also caused the truck driver to crash, although he made it out okay with a few injuries. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said about Minoru. Minoru was then pronounced dead on impact. But that wasn't the end of him. When he gained consciousness, all he saw was darkness and felt a wet sensation all around him. It seems my mental capabilities are strong enough to stay conscious when I'm inside my new mother's belly being. It was a weird feeling for Minoru to be conscious during this particular moment. Apart from feeling bored, he felt himself growing stronger and stronger as the months passed by. It seems my body is being constructed to be able to hold the power of the Shadow Monarch. I could feel it near my chest, a bundle of energy being formed. I saw that my black heart was being formed. Nice, Minoru thought. And as time passed, all of Sung Jinwoo's skills were being implanted onto the very being of Minoru, fully becoming skills that truly belonged to him now. And with that, 9 months quickly passed. All the water that surrounded his baby body suddenly popped and flowed downwards, which was quickly followed by tight squeezing, signifying the start of his new birth. After a while, Minoru saw a white light and was pushed toward, which prompted him to close his eyes. When he then opened up his eyes, he was in the arms of a beautiful black-haired woman looking at him with a worried expression. To the side of the woman, what greeted him was a shiny bald head also looking at him with worry. The mother then turned to the maid who helped deliver the baby and expressed her worry, "Aren't babies supposed to cry? Why isn't it crying? Is something wrong with him?" Minoru, who is now named Cid, understood what was going on and started to fake crying to try and calm his new mother. Monotone baby crying. Hearing him cry, everyone present let out a sigh of relief. The woman who helped with the delivery then said, "It looks like there's nothing wrong with your baby, madam. Sometimes it takes a while for babies to let out any sound, it's not always immediate. Congratulations once again on your healthy baby boy." The door to the room slammed open as 2-year-old Claire ran with her little legs to her mother's side, trying to get a better look at her new baby brother. What everyone failed to notice, however, was the hundred upon hundreds of eyes just glowing in the shadows. And the shadows all just had one thought. "Our master and majesty is born once again."